What do you think about, though, like, how do you help property management companies think about cultural fits as well? Evernest has a very strong culture. So even anyone that we hire in Mexico, they're going through a cultural interview. What do you see as how do you bridge that gap? And I'm not talking about from a Mexico to a U.S. culture. I'm talking about just the culture of the company.
Yeah. So, I would love to know how Evernest does it, because you guys are a big company. At Empire, I only had 35 people working for me. It's the smaller you are, the easier it is to create a culture, right? And you can extend that culture through Zoom if you have lots of Zoom calls. One of the ways that I do it is first, when you interview, and I'm the final interview, my interview is I try to scare the crap out of people so that they don't want to work for me. So I push my core values down their throat, my culture down their throat. I let them know all this stuff. We work hard. We work overtime. We work weekends. Like, I tell them all the bad stuff. Then I go over their job description. If they still want to work for us, I know my team's already interviewed them. So I just say, okay, I'm looking for a good core. I'm looking for a good culture fit.
Yeah.
The way I keep it in front of everybody is every company meeting we have, it's on Zoom. And we go over, the first slide is always our core values, except for in January, we go over like the vision of the company. But February through December, it's core values, and they know I will call them out. And I will reach out to somebody and I'll ask them, hey, what is the I in our WIP? We use acronyms. What's I stand for? And then give me an example of I. And then I ask people, give me an example of somebody, of a team member who has embodied that core value. So my team knows our core values. The last meeting we had, I think we went 10 minutes. I only got 10 people work for me. We went 10 minutes on different people and how they're using and how they're embodying the core values. So that's the way and we hire, fire, and we promote all based on core values. So that's the only way that I know how to do it, but I'd love to hear if there's other ways, like going down to Mexico. I guess you guys have a lot of people in one state. I got people in Philippines, Mexico, Colombia. I'm truly international, but I'd love to hear more ideas.
I think it helps. I think it helps that we do have a core group that's been with us a long time, and actually we have hiring managers living in Mexico hiring remote staff, so they're also on top of that, and they've been with us a while.
Yeah, you definitely have to have some culture champions down there, and then have them be protectors of the culture. Spencer and I just talked about this. One of the hard things to do as you scale an organization is to use a Jim Collins, preserve the core and then stimulate progress. It's very hard to preserve the core because you start to get more and more people, especially as the more people start to outpace the core group of people that have been here. And still, when we think about the core, preserving the core, what are the artifacts that we have at the organization that are, like if somebody came in and said, we're going to cut expenses, these would be to them some obvious things, but these are artifacts that we're not going to cut. And one of those, which we did cut, and then we've brought it back recently, is what we call used to be the 25K. We talked about that some on our podcast. Now the 250K, because it was so core to who we were that it was an artifact that we needed to consistently do. And you're right. We do have a lot of people in one area of Mexico, but we started hiring all over Mexico, and we've always gone to that one area of Mexico. And last year we actually went to Mexico City. One of the things we realized was that every place in Mexico has flights to two cities. One is Cancun. We didn't quite pull that one off yet. We might do that this year, depending on how much success we have. But every city has a flight to Atlanta, Mexico City, every city in Mexico. So we met in Mexico City, and it was a fantastic time. I think of the 150 team members we had, call it 80 there, so a little more than half. We paid their way, basically gave them a stipend to show up, and so they got really creative. But when and I saw Brandon pop this in here, like when you spend time with your team, and if you have just a few, if you can figure out how to bring them to the U.S., that's a very powerful thing to do as well. Get to see the home office, meet people, hang out with people in a setting that's not Zoom or not in the middle of a meeting. And so I think to put a fine bow on this, or a fine point or a bow, is look, you've got to treat your team like they're part of your team. We started out calling these teams virtual assistants, and we treated them like that. And then we started to warm up to the idea of them being more a part of the team. And that's what we found a lot of success is bringing them along from being that very transactional virtual assistant to being a remote team member or an ITM.